G'day, it's Peter back with another episode of the Property Club. Today, doing something a bit different actually. You know, when you're in the car and you're driving and you're with a friend, usually I'm with Brian, usually Brian's sitting next to me, and you know, you start talking and you have these great conversations I find, right? And I was talking to Brian last week while driving up to Pundakit, which is what I'm doing just alone today because mate, I've got to go on site and, you know, check up on the boys and see how the construction's going. But I find, you know, when I'm in the car, I don't know, there's something about, you know, being in the car and talking in the car that you get a really good free flow. So I'm going to free flow today. It's just my Philippine expats free flow, you can say, right? So it should be an interesting discussion today. The topic, I guess, is, you know, Asia for life. And I'm not just going to say the Philippines, I'm going to say Asia, right? Because I really want you to understand what's on my mind, you know, how I feel, you know, why I decided to move to the Philippines and Asia, you know, in the very first place, and why I'm here for life, why I've decided that, you know, I'm going to stay here permanently. So look, you know, I'm a bit of a true blue Aussie. I really love Australia. I love my home country. I think it's such a wonderful country. It's a beautiful place to live. I love it. I think it's a great place. So a lot of people would say, and especially Filipinos do say to me, they said, well, you know, so where you're from? I'm from Australia. Why are you here? I'm working here, I'm living here. But why do you live here, sir? Why do you live here and you don't live in Australia? We don't understand. We don't get it. And I get that, you know, Filipinos don't understand that. And I've just got to check that I got my license. Got it. Yeah, all good. Filipinos don't get that because for Filipinos, like, there is this classism whereby, you know, Filipinos, like a lot of Filipinos aspire to move and get out of the country, and foreigners have this idea that they want to move to some place like the Philippines or Thailand because, you know, they have a better quality of life. So Filipinos can't really understand it, right? Because to them, in their country, there's a lot of hardship. There's a lot of corruption. And most importantly, most notably, it can be very, very hard to make money. Now, if you're a retiree, you might not be concerned about making money because you're retired. You've already made maybe, you know, millions, maybe a few 100,000 in the bank saved, depending on what you've saved over your retirement, you know, for your retirement. So it's not a huge concern. But, and this is a big but, because not everyone has that kind of money. Not everyone's a retiree. Not everyone's got, you know, a really stable pension. And I think, you know, as time goes on, you know, pensions in the Western world, Australia included, or United States, I think we're going to see less and less of that. I also noticed that, you know, there's been talk in Australia on the news and stuff that in Australia, the, you know, pension age, so, you know, I'm only 36 now, but I'm going to have to wait 40 years to actually get the pension. So for my generation, we will only get the pension at 76 years of age. And man, that just leaves me shaking my head because, you know, how can I live with no money in a country like Australia? That is very, very expensive, right? Depending on where you live, some places are cheaper than others. And look, some things are cheaper in Australia than here, and I'll talk about examples of that later. But my point is, you know, for a long time Australia in the Western world has been the lucky country. Australia is known as the lucky country, and you know, America too, you know, the land of the free, the land of opportunity, you know, same thing, right? But what I'm finding for my generation, being in the mid-30s, I'm finding that it's not so lucky. Because in Australia, you had this huge property boom, and this is the biggest thing for me, had this massive property boom whereby, you know, baby boomers and people of that generation have made their money. They've made their millions and squillions, okay? And most have made it in real estate, right? So they might have bought a property 20, 30 years ago for $200,000 that's now worth $2 or $3 million. Like in Sydney, where I originally grew up, in Sydney nowadays, okay, mate, a 2-bedroom flat in a good suburb, like let's say in the northern suburbs, the northern beaches, or near the city, eastern suburbs or inner west, you're looking at $1 million. $1 million. And I'm not talking about a big place. I'm talking like 70 to 80 square meters. And I'm not talking about something nice and modern. I'm talking about maybe an old walk-up. Now, if you're in the eastern suburbs and you're in the really, really nice suburbs near the best beaches and very close to the city, it'll cost even more. And the thing is, you want to be close to the city because that's where all the jobs are. Otherwise, it gets really difficult in commuting. I remember personally, when I was working in the big city in Australia, you'd go to work and you'd park. You park your car, and some days, like if you don't have proper parking, mate, you could park for 2 hours and you're up for $30, $40 for 2 hours. Some places in big cities like Sydney could charge as much as $100+ for temporary parking for the day. So you have to find a place that does like a daily rate of like $40 or $50, and you park a long way away. And then you're commuting for like an hour to and from work each day. It's absolutely crazy. Now, actually, while everyone's being negative about the pandemic and what's going on with this pandemic, there is some positive that's come out of this pandemic. And the one positive thing I can think of that has affected me personally is I don't have to go to the office anymore. I can work from home. It's my dream come true. You can work from home. How great is that? So now things are changing. And I think with that, what you'll find is not only will cities change and the prices and the property prices in big cities will come down, but also countries. So people will start to look and think, like I have, hey, where's a more affordable place to live where I can, have a better quality of life, save more money, and by saving more money, I can then reinvest that money into real estate or other forms of assets that, could potentially increase and improve quality of life, right? So that's what it's all about, and that's why I moved to Asia. Now, everyone's motivation is different, moving to the Philippines or moving to Asia, Thailand, or, originally the place I was thinking to move was actually Japan. That was the very first place I thought that, hey, that's where I want to live, is Japan. But after spending time in Japan, I decided not to because, one, the visas were hard, and this was the very hardest thing. I tried for like over a year to find a way to get some kind of permanent visa to Japan that was easy, and it just wasn't easy. Now, I did find solutions for Japan, and the biggest solution, the best solution that my mates, my friends have actually taken is to teach English, because you could teach English and then get a work visa. Now, that just did not work for me because I guess you could say I'm a bit of a digital nomad. And I had this idea that, I wanted to work online, I wanted to work from home, I wanted to create my own workspace. I can say I'm one of the pioneers. I'm one of the first digital nomads that came out here, from my generation and, pioneered in Asia, right? I started back in, I started looking around 2005 or 2006, say 2006, but I actually committed to moving out here in 2008, and I actually went and permanently moved, I believe it was 2009. So now 2021, that's a long time. How long is that? Wow. So we're talking 12 years here. I've been over here for 12 years, full time. I've been living here, okay, in Asia. Now during that time, I spent a little bit of time in Japan, not long, maybe 6 months, and it was kind of month on, month off because of visas. Now you can actually get a 3-month visa as an Aussie to Japan. Probably not now with pandemic, but you can. I've worked in Hong Kong. I've worked in China. So Hong Kong and China, I did close to, on and off 4 years. And the rest of the time I've spent mainly in the Philippines, but a bit of time in Thailand as well. So, here's my idea. Here's my concept. So one day I was looking at real estate online, and it was probably, over 12 years ago now, and I was comparing real estate in my country versus Thailand. Originally I was looking at real estate in Thailand, and I realized that, for the money that I'm spending in Australia on real estate, really I could buy 10 times the amount of square meters in Asia. Okay? So, if I could buy, let's say for example, one 100 square meter apartment in a prime area for $1 million, I could buy 10 100 square meters apartments, in Asia, throughout Asia for $1 million. So my point, and where I was going in my head, is these baby boomers that bought cheap in Australia and make lots and lots of money, they could retire early. They could retire in their 40s, they'd have, 10 properties. Some might not have that many, but just for example, and just live off the income from that real estate. Now, the Philippines and, Thailand, actually, the property prices over the last couple of years, and I had been kind of talking about this, are starting to get more expensive. Now, instead of being able to buy like 1 to 10 when I first started in Asia, before the pandemic, it started getting like 2.5 to 3. Let's say 3, depending on where you buy in Asia, right? Philippines is probably more like 3 to 4. It's still quite affordable even before the pandemic. So let's say 4 for Philippines and 3 for Asia. If you're looking at like Thailand or even Cambodia, which, Phnom Penh, Cambodia, is actually quite expensive nowadays. So that's my point. So where I'm at with it is this. For a long time, I sat on the fence because I still love my country. I still love Australia. I'm still a true blue Aussie at heart. Okay? And I still want to spend time in Australia. Okay? I want to holiday there sometimes and see my family. Obviously, I can't do that now due to pandemic, but I do want to do that in the future. So what I'm trying to say is this. A part of me, and look, this came out in a vlog very recently, and funny, I'm about to talk about this and I'm driving past the hospital in Barreto. So Lourdes Hospital, you can just see that here. Well, you'll see it in the background as we drive past Our Lady Lourdes. So what happened, I had a big change. When I was single, I had this big plan of living in Asia permanently, okay? And it didn't matter because it was just me. But after I had my child, my baby boy, Pete, I was like, well, maybe I need to reconsider. So I had my baby boy, Pete, literally just before this pandemic started. So Pete really is like a pandemic baby, right? He was born in 2020, right? So, he just turned 1 year old. He's 1 year now, right? And I kind of freaked out because I love my son and I want to give him the best of life. And I freaked out because I was like, am I doing the right thing by staying here in the Philippines? Should I come home? Obviously, family pressures. I don't get along that well with my family. I wish I got along better. Many people in my family just don't understand me. Many haven't visited me here in Asia in the 12 years since I've started here. My father, he's come over a lot, so he's fully supportive, of me being here, and he thinks it's a great idea because he's seen, the hardship in Australia. He's seen, how hard you have to work as a young person. He gets it. He totally gets me, right? Other people in my family they don't understand it. They don't understand it. But anyway, recently, I kind of, in the last year, during this pandemic, 2020, it was really eye-opening for me. And actually, I've got to get a mask quickly because I'm going through a checkpoint, and no doubt they're going to question me. All right, there we go. Just get the mask. I'll put this on to go through the checkpoint. Now, there's no one else in the car, but you know, you should have it. You're supposed to wear a mask in your car, right? If there's more than one person. But my point is, there's only me, so I'm not wearing a mask today. But what I'm saying is, look, 2020 was really a big challenge for me. Everything went wrong in 2020. It went bad. So let's hold that thought while I go through this checkpoint. Hey, buddy. All good? Thumbs up? Yep, yeah, he lifted his stick. Sometimes you don't understand what they're saying because they'll give you signals or lift a stick or do a funny wave or something. I don't understand half the time. But anyway, we're through. So what I'm trying to say is 2020, I had to make a decision for the long term, okay? I had to make a decision. What was I going to do long term and have a plan, a strategy? Because now I'm a dad. Now I'm a dad and I want the very best for my son. You know, I want to be a good dad. I want to be a good father, right? And I want to give, you know, my son a good life and, you know, not have to worry like I did growing up, right? About, you know, where money's going to come from, how you're going to be able to afford things and give him the best opportunity possible, right? So I've decided, what I decided is, after much soul searching in 2020, I'm going to stay in Asia permanently. I'm going to burn my bridges in Australia. I'm going to burn them, right? Just like Napoleon did in the war. He blew up his own bridges, so there was no return. So a lot of people have been saying to me, and this will answer your question as well, Pete, how have you been able to afford now, before you're really struggling, you're doing it tough, how have you been able to afford to go and do what you're doing now in Asia? How are you doing that? Because yes, in early 2020, it was a tough time because pandemic hit, people weren't paying their rent, and I had several rental properties, right? It was a tough time. My personal income was actually down, right? So oh wow, there's roadworks on the road here. It's a bit of a mess. I was on the wrong side of the road. I thought I had to go that way. So yeah, it was bad. It was really, really bad, okay? And at that time I was like, geez, maybe I should just go back to Australia. Maybe I need to look at other work opportunities, get a second job. And I did that. I got a second job. I was working, you know, second job online. I was looking at, you know, other ways to make money online. I did whatever necessary or possible to, you know, pay the bills, pay the mortgages, you know. And in the Philippines, we have a lot of bills. We do. We have a lot of bills, okay? So, you know, on average, just our bills alone would be 50 to 60,000 peso a month. Just the bills. And yeah, that's life, you know. Obviously, we have rental income to offset that, but when that rent stops, that's a big problem. So for me, I started to get nervous about my whole theory, my whole strategy about buying in Asia, and, you know, buying in Asia and getting a really good return on investment, rental wise, you know, having a really good rental yield. Like in Australia, you get like 2%, but my properties here in Asia, like the lowest I'd get even for a permanent let was like 8%. And when I was doing Airbnb, you know, my rental return averaged between 12 and 18%. How good is that? So I could invest potentially $1 million and make, you know, at least $120,000 per year with Airbnb. And that had its challenges too. And we'll talk, you know, we might talk about that another time, but Airbnb in some countries has become very restrictive. Thailand, they won't let you Airbnb. Japan, they're now allowing it. They've legalized it. Philippines, you can still Airbnb, but it depends on the building, especially now in pandemic. Most places like in Manila, you can't even Airbnb your property. And that's why in Manila, it's been such a huge problem, because you can't Airbnb your property, you can't rent your property unless you heavily discount it. Like, you know, usually you get, you know, 40,000 a month peso, 40,000 pesos, about 800 American a month. Now you have to, you know, give it away. You have to, rent it out at like 20,000 peso a month just to be able to rent it. That's just reality now. That's what we're experiencing here in Asia. So that's just reality, and obviously Airbnb just doesn't work at the moment. It doesn't work. However, I had a long think about this, and I realized I need to double down. I need to back myself, and I need to burn my bridges to Australia and stop thinking about Australia. I just need to hone in and focus here. So what I decided to do, late last year, I applied for a loan in Australia. So I leveraged against, I still have one, used to be my home, but I've let this property out for a long time now. I've rented it out for a long time now. A property that, has increased substantially in Australia. And I was lucky. I bought a property back in 2006 in Queensland. I actually bought on the waterfront a house. Now, I almost lost that property because me and my ex split, but I fought for that property because I'm the one that paid the deposit. I paid the bills. I wasn't going to let her have it. So I made a lot of sacrifices over the years for that property, and I'm glad that I held on to it. But that was my nest egg. That was my hedge. If things went bad in Asia, it didn't work out, that I could always have a home to go back to. And I still have that. But rather than paying that loan down and having a cheap loan, what I've decided to do earlier this year is I leveraged. So I borrowed, a lot of money against that property. Okay, so I raised my loan amount, and I've used the equity from that, right, to come back to Asia during this pandemic and buy land. So far I bought, the lot at Alta Vista and the lot here in Pundaka, where I'm driving out now, to check on the boys with the construction. And I wasn't going to do that, but it was after seeing this lot in Pundaka, I got back to basics, and I realized my dream was always to be like this digital nomad. I had this vision where I could live and work on the beachfront, have some beautiful girlfriend, have a beautiful family. I could work during the day, and then I could take my kids down to the beach and build sandcastles and go swimming and teach them how to swim and how to surf and do all that. Because in Australia, that's kind of the dream, but it's just a very expensive dream. Because anything near the beachfront, or God forbid on the beachfront, especially if you're in Sydney or, Gold Coast or, a prime, a big city in Australia, it's very expensive. It's very expensive. Even Byron Bay, which is a small town in New South Wales, will cost you 5 to 10 million for a beachfront property. So I saw this block of land. It was a really good opportunity, and to be honest, at the time, I couldn't afford it. I could not afford it. So I decided, okay, let's take the punt, let's take the gamble. I'll go and I'll leverage and lend against my house in Australia, and I'll take the gamble. Okay, so that's what I've done. Now, the other thing too is I still have to pay that loan, and because I've raised the loan up, I actually have to pay more on that loan. So, because the loan amount is higher, but it kind of balanced out because I was able to refinance that loan and get a cheaper interest rate, luckily. So in the end, I could borrow more money, and it hasn't really cost me much more. In fact, even after borrowing more money, because rates have come down in Australia, it actually is going to cost me less. So after borrowing hundreds of thousands of dollars more, right, it's actually going to cost me less. Can you believe that? Because I refinanced and rebundled my loan, which was, really good. So I'm positive and upbeat about that. I was very lucky that I was even able to do that, because actually for expats and non-residents, it's very hard to get lending in Australia now. It's become difficult. Before, the big banks would take it on, but now it was very tough. So actually I approached a big bank originally in late last year to refinance my loan, get a cheaper loan, and take the stress, the pressure off, because at one stage I was paying about $6,000 per month in repayments, which was huge, absolutely huge. Okay, so that's what happened. I was able to get my loan down to closer to $4,000 a month, and I got more money. So that is awesome. However, the downside is previously I had principal and interest, which meant I had to pay the interest component and bring the loan down slowly. Whereas now I've actually gone for a loan whereby, it's interest only. Okay, so I'm only paying the interest. So I'm not reducing the debt. I'm just keeping the debt that's on it. So it's risky. It is risky because I'm taking a gamble, and my gamble is everyone's trying to buy in Australia right now and it seems overheated. Whereas no one's buying here in Asia. Here in Asia, property is still very, very cheap. And back to what we were talking about earlier, and what I was saying earlier is that actually before maybe you could get 4 properties in the Philippines. Now, due to pandemic, you can get some deals. So it's more like 5 to 6 properties. It's not as good as when I first came here where you could get 10 properties. But I'm hoping, and I'm sitting on it at the moment, I'm hoping that things get worse here in the Philippines and that property, and they are getting worse. We just had record numbers, 8,000 in one day, affected by this terrible plague, this COVID-19. It's just horrible, right? This pandemic. So what I'm saying is maybe I can get to like 6 or 7 times, what I could buy in Australia. So if I can do that and, hopefully this build doesn't blow out to something obscene and crazy, if I can manage this build and keep it within budget, then, I can save over the course of the next year and go again, and then next year again, and next year again. And that's my strategy, okay? That's my strategy. That's what I'm doing. And I've decided, okay, I'm here to stay. I'm going to be in Asia for life. I'm going to make it. I'm going to make it. And not only am I going to make it, but I'm going to do very, very well. I'm going to do well for my family. I'm going to give them the best life possible. And I'm going to try, and yes, it's important with property, but I'm going to try and live a more balanced lifestyle. Whereby, yes, I'm going to work hard. I'm still going to work 2 jobs and do YouTube and invest. I want to do all of that. But I want to some days, like one day, at least a week, take a day off, and I want to be able to, at least 3 or 4 days a week, after this build's done, I'm kind of put it on hold at the moment, go back to my routine where I'm working out and I'm being healthy. Now, before the build, before I started building and all this that's going on now, okay, I was doing that, and I went from 115 kilograms down to 92 kilograms, okay, which is huge. It's 23 kilos. Unfortunately, I've gone back up to about 98, and that's only because of the stress of it all and building and extra hours and sitting at my computer longer hours because I've had issues with work, and the income hasn't been as good as I hoped with work and all this stuff, right? So it hasn't been as good, but I'm backing myself. I'm taking the punt, and I'm going all in. I'm not sitting on the fence anymore. I'm not doing it, because by doing that, I'm miserable. I'm upset. I'm miserable because I can't achieve my hopes and dreams here in Asia. I can't do it. So at some stage I had to say, okay, I'm all in or I'm not. You can't have your foot in 2 camps. I can't be in Australia and Asia at the same time. Okay, you can't do it. Whereas Asia, you can bounce around a lot, right? And this is the benefit of Asia. Like, I can go from the Philippines, I can go to Thailand very easily outside of pandemic. Previously I was getting flights for like $140 to $150 US to Thailand on Thai Airways. So a really good provider. Now it's going to be probably more expensive when this pandemic ends, I've got no doubt. It might be $300 for a flight, right? So I'll just have to take less flights, okay? And what I want to do is long term, I want to spend more time in Thailand as well. So I'm doing everything I can to build my portfolio here, right, in the Philippines while I can, and while we've got this pandemic, okay? But after this pandemic ends here in the Philippines and I can travel again, I want to diversify my portfolio, and I'm going to focus on Thailand next. And if ever I'm able to, reach my financial goals and income, and my income with my job gets good again, which has been pretty bad, especially the last 6 months have just been horrible. Like I'm talking super bad. I don't even want to mention numbers. But if I can do that, okay, then yeah, it's going to be great. And all I need to do is just focus. And this is why I've been doing other stuff too, like Earth 2, for example. Now, I don't want to talk much about Earth 2. If you're interested in Earth 2, you can watch the other videos, because this is a video outside of my Earth 2 video series. Okay, but what I'm doing is everything I possibly can to reach my goals. And actually, I find it's really important to goal set. Goal setting is very, very important to me. And a long time ago now, it's probably 15 years ago, when I was 21, someone showed me a vision board. And at first, I laughed. I thought this vision board was a joke. It was stupid. It's absolutely ridiculous. But after a year, I saw people, that really got dedicated, were really into these vision boards, and they became very successful. And I was like, wow, how did they do that? And I went back to basics and I did a vision board. Since then, I've had like 7 or 8 vision boards, because your vision does change over time, right? And I remember one vision board where I was just really focused at the time in my mid-20s, and I had this vision of this house that I wanted to buy, and I was able to achieve that and buy the exact house in the picture. I got it, the exact house in the picture, and it wasn't on the market at the time. I just really liked this house, and I was able to buy it. Amazing, absolutely amazing, right? I was actually walking in the street in Brisbane, and I took a picture of this house, and I put this picture of this house on my vision board, and one day it came up for sale, and I got it. And actually, I got it not the best price, but it was an okay price. Like, it was all right. I later sold that because I decided to permanently move to Asia, and I needed to fund that, right? So yes, like, I do have a goal. I do have strategies. I am working very, very hard to achieve what I can say is financial freedom for me and my family, okay? I want to be financially free, and I think this is the biggest thing. This is the most important thing. I'm tired of mortgage slavery. I'm tired of, Western slavery. And ultimately, let's face it, that's what it is in the Western world now, because, our governments have, said to people, the property market, here's incentive or stimulus to buy into real estate into Australia, right? It's like a cult in Australia. Like, property is like a cult, okay? You're either a believer or you're not, okay? And, right, people get offended if you're not, and they'll start to try and convince you, okay? But what I've realized in Australia is the government purposely keeps adding fuel to the fire by lowering interest rates or offering this new construction incentive. They did it in the pandemic most recently. They said, we're going to give you, an extra 20 grand to go and build. If you go and stimulate the construction industry, we're going to give you $20,000 in bonus money to go and do that. And yeah, that was great, because, you're going to get $20,000 to do that. But it was also bad because then builders, started to lift their prices. Developers, started to lift their prices on land. And honestly, you would have been better off just buying before the pandemic, before they had these bonuses, because you probably get something cheaper, to be honest. Seriously, you get a better fixed price contract on your build, you get a better price for your land, etc. Okay? I know for a fact, I absolutely. But look, the market has moved up, and maybe, a lot of those people will do well, and good luck to them. But my point is, in Australia, like, what's the point to buy your own house and then 2 or 3 investment properties when they cost so much? And then you rent out these houses, and in Australia, if you want to, maintain that house, to, fix a leaky tap could cost hundreds of dollars. Whereas here in the Philippines, it'll cost hundreds of peso. And that's a big expense. So, repairs and maintenance. I know. I've been paying this one house for several years now, right? Just this one house has been an absolute nightmare. I just got another bill, to fix a leaky shower. The shower is leaking, so they need to fix up the tiles and reseal the bottom underneath the shower. They quoted me $6,000. I'm like, you gotta be kidding. This is disgusting. I went off at the agent. I said, I'm stuck here during this pandemic. This is absolutely insane, right? I'm better off to rip out the shower and find a new tenant. I'm not paying $6,000. Mate, for $6,000, I should be able to, entirely redo my kitchen. It's a joke. Even in Australia, at Australian prices. So that's a big problem, in Australia, where you don't really have that problem here in the Philippines because labor is cheap. It is so much cheaper to maintain property here than it is Australia, right? And this is the one fact that in Australia just makes it, for me, like I'm just totally going cold on the property market. That, in Australia, I mean, because it's so expensive to buy. Firstly, that's A. B, it's expensive to hold because of maintenance costs. And C, property taxes. So in Australia, you have council rates and property, what's called land taxes. Land tax is insane. Like, honestly, I have one property that's technically an investment property in Queensland. I would not want another. Because, if you're paying 1% per annum on $1 million property that you own, that's a $10,000 tax to the government, right, for that one property. On top of your mortgage, on top of maintenance costs, on top of all of this. It's absolutely insane, okay? It's insane. And for a lot of young people, they're going to get into this property market. Some will do well, but some won't do so well. And some will realize that it's just a money pit. And it's just an absolute money pit. And, if you're smart, what you need to do is start to work out that, where is best for you to live, where you can have a better quality of life, save money, right? Cheaper living, more affordable living, and have the same standard of life or better, right? And that's what I did. So I can speak for myself and say, look, yes, the work has been harder to get online. Yes, it's been harder to work from home. But that's changing. That's all changing now with this pandemic. So I think now, more than ever, it's an opportunity to live in Asia, still make good Western income because you've got a Western, education, and people will still hire you, and people are more willing to hire now for those working at home. So, for me, that's a big plus because I don't have to go to the office. I don't have to commute to Manila anymore. Before, I used to have to go. At one stage, I was spending half my time in Manila and half my time in Subic, which really sucked, to be honest, because it's a long drive and it gets tiring and you don't get time to enjoy your life or go out or, even go to the gym. It's unhealthy is what I'm trying to say. So that time saved, I can either, invest my time into a second job, YouTube, or, I could invest that time into something else like, improving my health, going walking, playing sports, spending time with my family, right? So that's really important. So I think definitely there's some negative stuff from this pandemic, but there's also a lot of positivity coming out of this pandemic. And this is where kind of I've gone full circle. So we talked about at the start of last year, I was really very, very negative. I was super, super negative. And I've turned that around and I'm super positive. So I've done a 180, all right? So I've been able to turn it around. I'm really happy about that. But, I had to make some serious life-changing decisions, to get happy again, right? To get happy and, sort out my life and sort out my finances and get back on track to, hit my goals, So goal setting and vision boards. And I did do very recently a new vision board, right? And actually my old vision board didn't even have Arian on it. She wasn't even on it. Because at one stage, yes, and I'm very honest in what I say in my vlogs, at one stage, I didn't even think we'd be together. I didn't think so. I thought we were going to break up at more than one stage, right? At one stage, she wanted me out of the house. Yes, she did, okay? And part of me wanted to go. All right, part of me was just like, stuff it, I'm going to move to Thailand permanently, whatever. But look, we had our son. She is actually a great woman. I love her very, very much. And look, to be honest, yes, some of the problems were from her, but it takes two to tango, and I had to realize that, some of the issues are also me. So, all fair in love and war. So we're able to sort things out. And look, I wouldn't say that everything's just resolved, because it's not like the honeymoon period. In Asia, more so than just dating a normal girl, but when you first meet some beauty here in Asia, especially Philippines, like beautiful Filipina, and they're young and gorgeous, and they've got a lovely bubbly attitude, you go through this honeymoon period. That's really exciting. And this is why some guys don't want to settle down, because they keep going from girl to girl, because they love that honeymoon period. They're actually addicted to the honeymoon period. So the one bad thing about our relationship now is we don't spend a lot of time together. And the time we do spend together, it's different, because we've got a baby, we've got a child, and it's time with the three of us. And it's very rare that we just get alone time between the two of us. And like, I actually sleep in another room, because otherwise I won't be able to sleep, because it's too noisy, right? Because the baby will cry, the bed's a bit small, I won't be able to stretch out, I won't be able to sleep properly, and then, I'll have a rough day at work. And I need my sleep for the amount of work and everything that I'm doing. I need to sleep properly. I have to sleep properly. So yeah, look, it's not back to normal. It will never be normal. I'm never going to get that honeymoon period again. It is different, but we just have to accept it is what it is. And I can see why a lot of couples do split up and divorce, because, when you have kids, it just becomes so much harder. And it's kind of like you feel neglected. You feel neglected by your partner, because it's like, well, you don't get as much time with your partner, and you miss them. Actually, I was in the bed the other night, and Arian sent me a message as I was thinking to send her a message, just to say on Facebook, I miss you. And it's so strange, because we live in the same house, but we know what we mean, right? We miss each other's company, and we do miss being single, right? We do miss being single. The one advice I can give expats moving to the Philippines, because I see this all the time. Don't rush when you're doing dating. Don't rush. As a bachelor here in the Philippines, the name of the game is to stay single for as long as humanly possible. Stay single, okay? Look around, do a lot of dating, be extremely picky until you find the perfect girl. Don't just go for the first girl. Don't do it. And explain to the girls when you're meeting them, we're dating, but it's casual dating. It's not serious dating, because that's a problem, and that'll make it hard for you if they think it's serious, and that you can't escape that. Have to beat merge lanes. So be careful of that, because then you might fall into the pussy trap, right? You might fall for it. And the other thing too is some guys just rush into marriage. That's a big no-no here, because here in the Philippines, if you're married, the whole law and the dynamics change, okay? Like, for example, if you're married in the Philippines and actually you commit adultery, okay, and you cheated on your wife, okay, and you got caught with that, you can go to prison, right? And I know this for a fact, because I know, people who have been in situations like this, and it's happened to them. and they thought, oh, I'll never get caught, it's not a problem, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, they went to prison. So be careful, man. You don't want to be getting banged up abroad here in the Philippines. You do not want to do that. You're going to have a bad time. Just saying. So anyway, what do I think of the Philippines, and do I still love the Philippines, and would I move to Thailand over the Philippines? Definitely Philippines is my base. Definitely I think Philippines as a foreigner like me, right, for me, is the best place for me. Okay, this is my base. But I am going to want to spend maybe 3 or 4 months of the year in Thailand, and let's say 8 or 9 months in my base in the Philippines. That's how I'm most likely going to split my time. Okay, that's important to me. I still love Thailand. I still want to do traveling when this pandemic ends. I love Japan. Japan's awesome. Actually, I spent a lot of time in China, and I've had some great times in China. I really miss there. And I got some friends in Shenzhen, and I've been saying I've got to get back there and see them. I got friends all over. I got friends in Mongolia. I've got to go to Mongolia. Not been there yet. I haven't been to Vietnam yet. I need to get to Vietnam. I've got friends there. Vietnam's important to me. But my point is, in this pandemic, I want to use it as an opportunity and diversify. Okay, so I'm doubling down in Asia, right? And the hope is, I can build this house here and, be within budget, and maybe, just maybe, with some luck, I might be able to, over the next year, get another condo in Thailand and rent that and get some more income. And yes, right now, a lot of these condos are, extremely hard to rent, and you have to reduce the rent substantially just to rent them. Yes, but after this pandemic, after it's all said and done, the people that bought cheaply and bought at 40 and 50% discounts when it was 100,000 US, like 3 million Thai baht, and bought for 1.5 million Thai baht, like a 50% discount for 50,000 US, it'll reopen, and instead of their rental return being 6%, it might be 10%. That's my point, right? So there is a huge opportunity right now in Asia. The challenge is getting here, right? I have known and I have seen people that are coming here still. Right now, Philippines is on lockdown again. You cannot get here whatsoever. But I know in Thailand, people are going through that 14-day quarantine just to get to Thailand and try and buy properties. I know guys doing it, right? And actually, I noticed in Thailand, a lot of those opportunities have already started to dry up. This is just Thailand, not the Philippines. The reason is Thailand's fared very well with the pandemic. So people and confidence, consumer confidence in the real estate market in Thailand is back. It's back, baby, right? And people are buying in Thailand again. So that's huge. That's huge news. In the Philippines, people are still buying, but they're buying for lifestyle. They're trying to escape, like I am, out of the big cities like Metro Manila, and they're buying someplace out in Subic. Could be, anywhere in the Philippines, in the provinces. Like, I'm even going further. I'm going to Pundakan, but it's a small town. It's away from everything. I'm going country, baby. Yeah, it's country life for me. Yeah. Right. So, there's a change. There's a shift. So I guess there is, yes, an opportunity in Manila, because definitely the discounts, they're not in the country here. You're still not getting the best discounts. No, you're not. You can find some prime land that might have been hard to find before, like I did, but I still had to pay for it. And to be honest, I probably paid very close to what I would have paid even prior to pandemic. I was just lucky to even get that lot, okay? So you can still find great lots, and there's more opportunities and different lots available. Absolutely, more than usual, well and truly. But people in the country are still asking, and there's still demand. Whereas Metro Manila, oh my God. So I've been out there maybe just twice now during this pandemic, and just very short time. And I can tell you, I looked at an apartment that was 9 million, just sold for 9 million 2 years prior to all this. So before the pandemic. So it sold 3 years ago. And it sold for 9 million peso. Okay? They're going to sell it to me for 5. They're going to sell it for 5 million, right? Before I bought this land. And I almost bought it, but I decided I don't want to be in Manila. I don't want to move back there. It was a 2-bedroom. I was thinking to move back there because I had a work opportunity with the pandemic. I could have stepped into a role which was much, much more money than I'm on. But I didn't want to go back there with my family, live in a small 2-bedroom apartment when I'm used to this lifestyle, this wonderful lifestyle here in the province, in the Philippines, where I can have a big house, Western style living. I have my dogs, you know, have lots of room, have a few cars, right, have some toys. And here now I'm on the beach. So I feel like, yes, I made the right decision. But I'm also telling you this because maybe, you know, for yourself, maybe you're one of those expats that has, you know, a retirement fund, and maybe you got a total of $500,000, let's say, US. So 25 million peso, and you're going to hold on to 15 million peso for the long term, or put it into a financial product in the States, but you've got 10 million free. Let's say you got some spare cash. There is a huge opportunity in Metro Manila right now. It is huge. It's a gamble because it could be a long time before you rent your condo in Metro Manila. And also, you know, if you do rent it, you're going to have to give a heavy, like 50% discount just to rent it during these current, you know, conditions, during the times. And who knows how long? It could be a year, another year before the Philippines reopens. And actually, if you go back and watch my pandemic videos, I did say to everyone, I reckon it's going to be 2022, quarter 2 was my prediction when things open back up in the Philippines. The reason I said that is because I full know how it's going to be here in the Philippines and how, you know, they'd be running this, you know, whole issue. And let's just say I don't feel that it's been run well, but I think it's as much the public's fault as it is the government. Because, and you can't just point the finger at the government, you can't do that, because what's happened is everything went into lockdown and the government tried to control it very quickly, and they said, we're going to lock this city down. People need to wear face masks and face shields and, you know, all these requirements. But people complain. You know, the public were upset. You know, we're upset. You know, even I was upset. I don't want to do it. This sucks. Right? Is this pandemic even real? Yes, it's real. I believe it's real. Okay? So my point is, you know, you can't just point the finger at the government. People complain so much that they've had to reopen things. Like, and what's happened, and the problem I feel is in places like Tier 1 cities, Manila and Cebu, they've open, closed, and people to some places like have been able to travel out to Angeles City or Subic or down to Batangas, you know, or, you know, whatever, right? And because it wasn't as strict as it should have been in those Tier 1 cities where people are all living on top of each other, now the problem has grown and it's getting worse and worse. Like I said, just the other day, we hit, I think it was the 22nd of March, we hit a new record, which was 8,000 people were infected with COVID-19 in one day on the 22nd of March. Horrible, just horrible. So, I mean, it's bad news. Things aren't going back to normal. In fact, we just had record numbers of people getting infected with this pandemic, which means, like, it might be a long time yet. It could be another year or two before the Philippines reopens, which is really sad. Teardrop here, really sucks. But I'm hoping early, you know, either quarter 1 or quarter 2, 2022. because I don't see how they can open up forever. The other thing too is we have these vaccines now, and I just don't understand why we don't have them yet in the Philippines, and why we can't just all take this vaccine, right? Just take the thing so we can travel again. I don't really want to take it, but if it means I have to take it to be able to travel, I will. I'll take it like that at a drop of a hat, because I want to be able to travel. I want to build this house, and then the next goal is to get out there in Thailand and find me some acquisition, right? So if I can go and find a nice luxury condo that was selling for 3 million Thai baht, like 100,000 US, and buy it for like, make an offer for $45,000 and just steal it. Yeah, then I'm back in business, baby. And yeah, I might be waiting a little bit longer for good rental income. I might have to rent it real cheap during the interim, during the downtime. But I think when things reopen, like, there's going to be this big boom in Asia. I think people are going to go crazy. I think people have put off their plan to retire. And what's going to happen is there's going to be a big boom in Asia, from Philippines to Thailand to Cambodia, right? To Vietnam. And that at that time, it's going to go crazy. And that, we will have, huge growth, capital growth in real estate, and increases in rental income. Absolutely, because people will be looking to rent and buy. Okay, so that's going to be huge. So now, this adversity is opportunity, okay? This adversity is opportunity. So now is the time to buy and get those deals and get those bargains and position yourself well, so when things reopen up, you're going to do well out of it, and you can potentially retire with only half as much money as you had. That's what I'm hoping. That's what I'm banking on. And that's why, I've gone and re-leveraged, remortgaged, borrowed more money so I can. That's why I've done it. Right? I've done it. I'm taking the risk. I believe in Asia. I love this place. I enjoy living here. And I think, for me, I'm going to be most happy here. And this is, like, all money aside, like, put money and the financial aspect aside just for a minute here, and let's just talk about our happiness. Like, my happiness. Like, in Asia, I'm more happy. I'm less stressed out. And yes, the last year I've been very stressed out. Absolutely. But, I would have been just as stressed in Australia. Absolutely. And I would have been missing Asia, and I would have been frustrated. And no doubt there's people in Australia and UK or US who are very frustrated that they are stuck, there in their country. And I saw an article in the UK in a British paper that was saying that actually there's a £5,000 fine if you're caught trying to leave the country. How is that? That's absolutely insane. So a long conversation today. I'm actually about to hit the bridge here in Pondaket, and my throat, you can probably hear my throat, is starting to go. So I just wanted to give you some insight to what's going on in my life, and my thinking in general about property here in Asia, about living and lifestyle here in Asia, and like I was saying, happiness, overall happiness. And I think being here and building something here for myself, I'm going to be most happy. But yes, money is important. You need it, because you can't come here with the shirt on your back and hope to have a good time, because you won't. You'll have a horrible time. That's a fact, right? So yes, I want to have a few properties that earn me a good income, so I don't have to work so hard. I don't have to work 2 jobs in YouTube. Eventually, I probably just want to work 1 job, and then hopefully, if I can, retire at 45, 50 if I can, right? Because the residual income, the rental income, is just earning for me, and then that's going to make me happy because I'm less stressed out, and I can have more time with my family, and I can afford to send my son to a really good school here, and when it comes time, I can, if he wants to go to university overseas, I can afford that. Stuff like that. That stuff is important. And, we can eat well. We can buy the steaks. I love steak. I love meat, right? We can put some nice rub on it. And, we can eat out. We can go eat out at the pub and go down and enjoy time together. And we can go holidaying. We can go to Japan snowboarding. We can go to Thailand and go visit the temples. We can do temple tours or ride elephants or go to the tiger temple, right? Stuff like that. So I'm excited. I'm just decided to be, I want to be back with positive Pete. No more of this negative Nancy nonsense. No way. I want to remain positive. Focus up, now, right? And, while I can't travel, just work really hard now, build my dream home, build on the beach, and, set myself up so when this pandemic finally ends, things are good for me. Oh, there's a couple of billy goats there. Awesome. So I'm in Pundakit. I made it. Woo! I'm in the country. Going to see the boys, see how the build is. So next, I'm going to be giving you an update on the build, how it's going. How cool is that? So update very, very soon. I'm going to go down there. Well, if I have battery left. Not sure if I do because I didn't bring my charger. Let's see if I do. So anyway, thank you so much. This has been Pete from the Property Club. Double thumbs up. Bye for now. And I hope you can do the same. Position yourself well so you're in a position when things finally do open up for you that you can reach your dreams and goals. Thanks and bye for now. Bye-bye.